For 23 years, Michael asked me for only one thing: never set foot on Silver Aspen Ranch. And today, as he rests beneath a sea of white tulips, I'm holding the key to that very place. Autumn fell softly like a veil of silk over the quiet cemetery. The wind slipped through the line of maples, carrying the scent of pine wood and fading incense. On the memorial table, white tulips were arranged with care. The flowers Michael once said were like your heart, Evie, pure but fragile. Evelyn stood in silence, surrounded by people whispering their last goodbyes. One by one, they placed flowers, spoke gentle words, and drifted away, leaving her alone before the framed portrait of her husband. In the photo, Michael smiled the same calm smile she had woken up to for over 2 decades. But now, in the hush between candlelight and wind, a single question pulsed in her chest. Why did he hide this from me? The last footsteps faded behind the maple trees. Then came a sound, deliberate, official boots on gravel. Evelyn turned. A man in a dark coat badge, glinting beneath the gray light, approached. He didn't speak condolences. He simply extended a sealed envelope stamped with the crimson seal of Gallatin County Court. Mrs. Evelyn Reed. This is an official service of notice. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, chilled by the autumn air. The label read, Partition Suit. Notice of Property Division. Inside, she found a silver key, cool and ornate, in a handwritten letter. Evelyn sat down beside the memorial, the candles flickering across her tear-streaked face. With slow, deliberate breaths, she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was unmistakable, slanted steady, familiar enough to ache. Evie, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Silver Aspen Ranch, the place I swore never to return, is now yours. Go there once, and only then, decide whether to keep it or let it go. The laptop in my study holds everything you need. Password. Our wedding date plus Harper. Some truths can only be seen when I'm no longer there to shield you from them. Michael. The ink bled faintly across the page, like it had been written during a long night of pain. Evelyn pressed her hand over the final line, feeling the ghost of his presence in every curve of the pen. A ranch, Silver. Aspen. Michael had never spoken that name in all their years together. Not once. Behind her, a trembling voice broke the silence. Mom, what's going on? Why would Dad hide a ranch? Why didn't we know about it? Evelyn turned. Lily, her only daughter, stood there, eyes swollen from tears. I don't know, sweetheart. But your father, he never did anything without a reason. The heavy door creaked open again. Adler, Michael's longtime attorney, entered quietly, clutching a thick folder. His voice was low, measured the tone of someone who had carried secrets too long. Mrs. Reed, I reviewed the documents. Silver Aspen Ranch was purchased 3 years ago from the Reed family estate. But now they've filed suit, claiming your husband lacked mental capacity when he signed the transfer. Evelyn's brows furrowed. Lacked capacity, Michael. He was healthy, sharp as ever. That's absurd. Adler sighed, the weight of old family disputes heavy in his tone. When hidden assets are involved, people will use any means to reclaim them. In Silver Aspen, it's more than just land. There's something there, something valuable. He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the tulips, as if the flowers themselves might be listening. Evelyn folded the letter gently and placed it beside Michael's portrait. She stared into his eyes, searching for an answer he could no longer give. What were you keeping from me, Michael? And why this key? A gust of wind rushed across the memorial, scattering petals and lifting the court papers into the air. Evelyn caught them just in time, her heart pounding. In that fleeting moment, she knew promises can protect, but they can also imprison. And some doors, no matter how forbidden, must finally be opened. She closed her fingers around the silver key, feeling its cold certainty against her palm. Beside her, Lily whispered, Mom, are you really going to go there? Evelyn lifted her gaze, resolve burning through the grief. Your father left me a secret, and I won't let strangers write the ending for him. A final ray of sunset cut through the clouds, bathing Michael's photograph in gold. The wind still whispered through the trees, but Evelyn's eyes had steadied. Michael, forgive me, but the promise I have to break it now. She turned black shawl flowing behind her like a banner of mourning and defiance. And there, on the table, draped with white tulips, Michael's letter remained a silent farewell. In the first step toward a truth Evelyn never knew she was destined to uncover. The road stretched like a ribbon of frost, winding through the quiet valley. Snow clung to the edges of the aspen trees, their silver-white trunks glimmering under the pale light of afternoon. The wind howled softly, not cruel but ancient, like it had carried secrets across these hills long before Evelyn ever came. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, the silver key resting in her coat pocket, its weight pressing against her palm like a reminder. Every turn seemed to whisper her husband's name. Every gust of air felt like a question. Are you sure you're ready to know? As the valley opened, the land unfurled before her eyes. Golden grass veined with snow, fences carved by time. And beyond it all, a gate of wrought iron, bearing a single name, Silver Aspen Ranch. Evelyn slowed to a stop. The gate creaked as it swung open its hinges, groaning as if waking from a long sleep. She drove through the tires crunching over gravel, the last light of day catching the red cedar roofs of the estate ahead. The ranch was vast, a cathedral of timber and silence. Smoke curled faintly from a distant chimney. Horses grazed near the paddock, their coats gleaming bronze under the sunset. For a moment, Evelyn forgot the lawsuits, the grief, the questions. She only felt home. Parking near the main house, she stepped out, boots sinking into the thin crust of snow. The scent of pine wrapped around her like a memory. Inside, the door opened with a gentle push. No lock, no resistance. Warm air greeted her, carrying the fragrance of cedarwood and faint traces of turpentine. Paintings of horses lined the walls, every stroke bold and alive. She recognized them instantly. "These are my paintings," she whispered. Michael had restored them, every piece she'd abandoned years ago, framed and hung with reverence. Her gaze moved toward the grand oak table at the center of the room. There, beside a vase of dried white tulips, sat a silver laptop, the one mentioned in the letter. The flowers were brittle but elegant, their petals curled inward like time folding upon itself. Evelyn sat down, fingertips tracing the metal surface. Wedding date plus Harper. The password echoed in her mind, but before she could press a single key, a beam of light slashed across the window. She froze. Headlights, bright, blinding. The growl of an engine followed, breaking the stillness. Gravel crunch doors slammed. Evelyn's heart kicked against her ribs as she stepped toward the window. A black SUV idled in the courtyard, steam rising from its hood. 3 men emerged, silhouettes cut sharp against the dying sun. The first, Spencer, tall, commanding his coat, immaculate his presence, the kind that filled a room even before he spoke. The second, Cole, briefcase in hand, eyes calculating, the unmistakable air of a man who never wasted a word. And the third, Grant, silent, solid, his expression unreadable, cold as the air he exhaled. They didn't knock. They walked straight to the porch, boots heavy on the wooden steps. When Evelyn opened the door, the wind rushed in between them, sharp, uninvited. Spencer's voice cut through the dusk. "You shouldn't be here, Evelyn. This land belongs to the Reed family." She met his gaze unflinching. "It was Reed land. My husband bought it fair and legal, and he left it to me." Cole stepped forward, lips curling slightly. "There are questions about his capacity. The court will decide." Evelyn took a calm breath, her grief cooling into resolve. "Then they'll have to decide with facts, not intimidation. Until then, I live here. And you," she glanced toward the gate, her voice steady, "are trespassing." For a moment, no one moved. Snow drifted between them, silent witnesses to the standoff. Grant's eyes narrowed, studying her like a hawk sizing up prey. Spencer's jaw tightened, and after a long pause, he turned. "You have no idea what you've walked into." "Maybe not," Evelyn said softly, "but I know what Michael wanted me to find." Without another word, they retreated to their SUV, the engine roaring back to life. As they reversed down the drive, Spencer's eyes caught hers through the glass, not with anger, but warning. Evelyn stood at the doorway, long after they disappeared beyond the gate. The valley had gone quiet again. the horizon melting into dusk. Inside, she locked the door and returned to the table. The laptop weighted silver against the amber glow of the lamps. Beside it, the tulips seemed to lean closer, as if listening. She whispered into the stillness, "All right, Michael, show me what you couldn't say." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Outside, the wind rose once more, threading through the aspens, whispering secrets buried deep beneath the snow. The house was silent, except for the faint ticking of an old clock somewhere down the hall. Evelyn sat before the silver laptop, her reflection trembling across the black screen. Her hands hovered for a moment, then she typed, 6-14, 1999, Harper. A soft chime. The screen lit up. A single folder appeared on the desktop, its name written in all caps for Evie. Her breath caught. She clicked. Inside were several files, but one stood out. A thumbnail of Michael smiling gently at the camera. The timestamp read, 18 months ago. Evelyn's fingers trembled as she double-clicked. The screen filled with light, and there he was. Alive, strong, the same steady eyes, the same voice that had once been the center of her world. "Evie," he began softly, "if you're watching this, I guess I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted." He took a slow breath, as if bracing himself. "I've been diagnosed with HCM hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's not immediately fatal, but it changes everything. I didn't want you to see me weak fading. You've spent your whole life taking care of others. I wanted to leave you something that could take care of you." Evelyn's throat tightened. The way he said her name, calm, steady, like nothing had changed. "You've probably wondered why I bought Silver Aspen. You know what it used to be, a place I swore I'd never return to. But I couldn't let the past win. I wanted to turn the nightmare into a gift." He leaned closer to the camera, voice lower now. "Beneath this land, there's a lithium aquifer. Pure, untapped, powerful. The kind of reserve that can change futures. The Reed family wanted it back, not because of sentiment, but because of greed. They wanted to strip it, sell it, and leave the land hollow. I said no." Michael's eyes hardened, the resolve of a man who had made peace with danger. "That's why they'll fight you. Why they'll come. But you won't be alone, Evie. In the desk drawer, you'll find a blue folder. Inside everything, you'll need property deeds, geological surveys, environmental reports, and proof. Proof of what Spencer and Cole have done." He paused, gaze softening. "You always said truth is quiet, but unbreakable. Keep it close, Evie. And remember, the key isn't just for the door." The screen dimmed, then went black. Evelyn sat frozen. Her heart ached with a mix of love and fury. Love for the man who planned every step, even in silence, and fury for the world that made him hide it. Slowly, she turned toward the heavy oak desk beside the window. Pulling open the drawer, she found it a navy blue folder, edges crisp, sealed with a gold clip, with a pa. She laid it open across the table. Inside were neatly arranged documents. Title deed, Michael Reed, sole owner. Geological assessment report, confirmed lithium-rich aquifer. Invoices for land restoration, fencing, irrigation soil, recovery. And at the back, a thin stack of papers, each page a wound. Email chains offshore. Statements, falsified contracts. All bearing the fingerprints of Spencer and Cole. Evelyn drew a long, trembling breath. Her husband hadn't been hiding wealth, he'd been shielding truth. From outside, a low hum reached her ears. She moved to the window. The black SUV still sat by the gate engine, idling, faint smoke curling from the exhaust. Inside, silhouettes moved, one talking on the phone, another pointing toward the house. Evelyn stepped back, hand resting on the cold sill. "They're not gone," she murmured. The shadows on the glass stretched and flickered with the light. She closed the curtains, the sound of her heartbeat echoing in her chest. Turning back to the desk, she gathered the blue folder, pressing it close. Michael had known they would come. He had known every step, and he had trusted her to finish what he started. Her voice broke the silence, soft but steady, narrating what her heart finally understood. "Now I see why you never spoke, Michael. You weren't keeping secrets. You were keeping us safe. You knew the most dangerous thing in this world isn't loss, it's greed. She extinguished the candles one by one, each tiny flame surrendering to the dark. Outside, the wind swept through the aspens, carrying whispers across the frozen field. Evelyn turned off the light and stood at the window once more. The SUV's headlights glowed faintly through the mist, patient waiting. She straightened her shoulders. "If it's a battle they want," she whispered, "they'll learn this house holds more than silence." And somewhere deep beneath the frozen earth, the lithium waters stirred ancient, unseen, and very much alive. Morning came thin and pale, the kind of light that carried more questions than warmth. Evelyn had barely touched her tea. The blue folder lay open beside her pages, spread like armor deeds contracts, reports each one a fragment of Michael's foresight. Outside, tires crunched against the gravel. Engines. Voices. They were back. Evelyn rose slowly, her reflection steady in the glass, as three figures stepped out of a black SUV, Spencer, Cole, and Grant, this time not alone. Behind them came two new faces, Deputy Harris, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, and Attorney Wallace, the county's legal officer. 5 against 1. A show of power. Exactly what they wanted her to feel. Evelyn opened the front door before they could knock. "You could have called," she said softly. Spencer didn't smile. "We prefer to handle family matters in person." Cole reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers, slapping them onto the table the moment they entered. Formal request, he announced, to inspect and evaluate the property, its assets, boundaries, and mineral rights. "You'll want to cooperate, Mrs. Reed. It'll save everyone time." Evelyn said nothing. She crossed to the kitchen counter, her movements deliberate, graceful. The kettle hissed softly as she poured water into a porcelain teapot, the scent of chamomile rising with the steam. Only when she'd set the cups down did she look up. "Tea." Cole's jaw twitched. He was expecting fear. Instead, he got courtesy. Evelyn opened the blue folder, sliding a set of documents across the table toward the deputy. "Before you proceed, you might want to see this." Deputy Harris adjusted his glasses, flipping through the pages. Evelyn spoke evenly, every word clear. "This is the title deed, my name, not my husband's." And this she tapped. "The next page is the purchase agreement signed by your late father, Mr. Reed. It confirms a full transfer of ownership. As you'll notice, the clause allowing forced partition was voided upon execution." Cole leaned in, scanning the document. His expression stiffened. Evelyn continued, voice calm, but edged with precision. "Meaning, gentlemen, there's no legal basis for your claim. This land isn't part of any shared estate. It's not subject to partition, seizure, or forced sale." The deputy flipped to the final page, nodding slowly. "She's right," he murmured. "The transfer's clean. No grounds for enforcement." For a moment, the only sound was the faint ticking of the clock. Spencer's hand clenched around the back of a chair. His composure cracked, if only for a heartbeat. "You think this ends here? You think a few signatures will bury the truth?" Evelyn met his glare without flinching. "No, but they'll remind you the truth was signed long before you showed up." Cole gathered the papers, his movements sharp. "We'll see you in court." "You already are," she replied softly. Grant, silent as always, watched her eyes narrow, assessing, before turning toward the door. Spencer lingered. The room felt smaller with him in it, his presence heavy, bitter. "You're alone, Evelyn. Don't forget that." "Alone?" She smiled faintly. "No, just unafraid." He said nothing more. The door closed behind them, their footsteps crunching down the path, fading into the sound of engines starting. Evelyn exhaled slowly, letting the quiet return. The kettle had cooled, the steam gone. She poured herself a cup anyway. The tea was lukewarm, but steady, like her resolve. At the table, she drew out her worn leather notebook, the one she'd carried since her teaching days. Opening to a fresh page, she wrote with deliberate care, each stroke a promise. "I will not shout. I will sign." Because Michael had taught her something they never understood, that strength didn't need to roar. Sometimes, it was a quiet signature. A page turned a truth preserved. She looked out across the valley, where snow still clung to the ridges, like ghosts of the past. They would come again, she knew. But next time, she'd be ready, not with anger, but with proof. Outside, the aspens swayed in the wind, silver leaves whispering through the cold. And beneath them, the ground held its secret close, waiting for the one who would guard it. Morning light spilled softly through the tall windows, painting the wooden floors in gold. Evelyn stood by the kitchen window, her teacup untouched, the silence of the ranch no longer heavy, just unfamiliar. Every sound, every scent was Michael's handwriting on the world he left behind. Then came a faint knock at the door, gentle, almost hesitant. She opened it to find a man in his early 60s, broad-shouldered, sun-browned, hat in hand. His eyes were kind-lined by years of labor and loyalty. "Mrs. Reed," he asked, voice steady, respectful. "Boone Carver, ma'am, ranch manager." Mr. Reed said, "This was your home." The words landed softly, like a promise finally kept. He said that Evelyn whispered, "Yes, ma'am." Said it more than once. Boone stepped aside, glancing across the valley. "Told us all, build it right. Every board, every hinge, she'll see it." Evelyn followed as he led her down the long path toward the stables. The air carried a faint chill, and the wind hummed through the pines like a song she half remembered. The stable doors swung open with a creak, revealing 6 horses, each one majestic, calm, their coats gleaming beneath skylights that poured in northern light. Boone's voice softened, almost reverent. He picked each of them himself, said everyone reminded him of a piece of you. He pointed toward a chestnut mare with a white blaze. "That one there," he called her Harper. "Bought her first. Said she had your spirit gentle, but she'll run when the wind calls." Evelyn stepped closer, running her fingers through the mare's mane. "I painted a horse like her once," she murmured. Boone nodded. He knew, kept a picture of it in his office. Said one day you'd paint again when the light was right. As they walked through the stable, Boone paused his gaze, tracing the beams overhead. "You see that stonework on the corner?" He laid those himself. Every rock. Took 3 winters. Said it reminded him of the cabin where you two first met. Evelyn stopped in her tracks. She remembered the mountain cabin, the smell of rain, the way Michael's hands had been calloused. Even then, his eyes bright with plans. "He built all this," she said quietly. "Every inch," Boone answered. Said the light here was born for you. That when it hit the northern wall, you'd know where your hands belonged again. He turned toward the house, gesturing for her to follow. "Come on, ma'am. There is something he wanted you to see." They climbed the staircase, each step creaking with memory. Boone stopped before a wide oak door and nodded for her to open it. Evelyn hesitated, her heart quickening. Then she pushed the door inward. The room bloomed with light, clear, cold northern light, flooding through a tall window that faced the open fields. It was a studio, spacious, serene, filled with the scent of pine and linseed oil. A long wooden table stood by the window, bristling with new brushes, tubes of paint, jars of turpentine. Along the walls hung canvases, blank waiting. And in the far corner sat a wooden chest with brass corners, its surface polished familiar. Her breath caught as she knelt to open it. Inside, carefully wrapped and cataloged, were her old paintings, the ones she had thought lost. Landscapes, portraits, sketches from a girl who had once dreamed without fear. Evelyn lifted one gently, the edges worn, the colors soft with age. When she unwrapped the paper, tears welled in her eyes. It was her own portrait painted at 22. A younger Evelyn eyes, bright smile, unguarded, standing before a canvas under the same northern light. Her voice trembled. "He kept this." Boone removed his hat, holding it to his chest. "Said you'd forgotten how to see her. Told me to keep it safe till you came home." Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. The face in the painting stared back, hopeful, fearless, alive. "That woman," she whispered. "She's still here." Boone smiled gently. "Mr. Reed knew that, ma'am. He said love doesn't fade, it just hides till the right light finds it." The words broke something open inside her. Not pain, but release. She looked around the studio, the clean brushes, the sunlight, stretching across the floor like open arms. The space Michael had built, not for art, but for her return. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered into the room, "You knew me better than I knew myself." Boone took a step back, voice low. He said to tell you the ranch is yours to keep, but the light's the part that belongs to both of you. Evelyn nodded, unable to speak. When Boone left, closing the door softly behind him, she stood alone in the glow of the window, the northern light spilling across her face the same way it had when she was 22. She laid the portrait on the easel, picked up a brush, and for the first time in years, dipped it into color. The first stroke trembled, the second, steadier. In his paint-touched canvas, Evelyn felt the air shift, not haunted, not hollow, but whole. The woman in the painting smiled back at her, and Evelyn whispered, "Yes, she's still here." The sun was slipping low when Evelyn heard the tires on the gravel. Through the kitchen window, she saw two silhouettes stepping out of a dark sedan, one tall, familiar in his tailored coat, and beside him, a figure she knew by heart. Lily, her daughter's auburn hair, caught the last of the light, and for a heartbeat, Evelyn's chest warmed until she saw who stood next to her, Spencer Reed. He placed a careful hand on Lily's shoulder, guiding her toward the porch like a mentor, not a predator. Evelyn knew better. The knock came polite, but assertive. When she opened the door, Lily smiled hesitant, hopeful. "Mom, can we talk?" Evelyn's eyes shifted to Spencer. "I thought we already had." Spencer's grin was practice-polished. "We're not here to argue, just to make peace. We're family, Evelyn. It's time we started acting like it." He stepped inside without waiting for permission, the scent of cologne trailing behind him. Cole followed, briefcase in hand, his expression as unreadable as ever. They sat at the long table, the same one where Michael used to draft plans and she used to sketch ideas. Now it felt like a courtroom. Spencer clasped his hands, tone smooth, rehearsed. Michael left behind something extraordinary. We all know that. The ranch, the land, the future it holds, it belongs to all of us. 3 equal shares. That's only fair. Evelyn poured tea, movements, unhurried eyes, calm but guarded. "Fair," she echoed. "You forget, Spencer, the law doesn't divide affection. It only divides what's proven." He leaned forward. "We're not enemies, Evelyn. We're blood." "No," she said softly. "You're his blood. I was his life." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Cole cleared his throat, producing a crisp document from his briefcase. He slid it across the table. "A simple agreement," he said. "Sign it, and we'll end this now. No court, no tension. You'll keep a generous portion, several $1 million immediate transfer." The offer hung in the air like perfume sweet, intoxicating, laced with poison. Evelyn took the paper eyes, scanning the legalese lines of surrender, disguised as kindness. She smiled, folding it neatly, and set it aside. "No." Spencer blinked just once. "You didn't even read it." "I didn't need to," she said. "The minute you called it generous, I knew it wasn't." His jaw tightened. Cole shifted in his seat. Behind them, Lily's voice trembled softly. "Mom, maybe just consider it. They're trying to help. You've been through so much." Evelyn turned, searching her daughter's face. Lily's eyes were wide, sincere, too sincere. The way she used to look when she believed every good word she heard. "Sweetheart," Evelyn said gently, "help never comes with a signature attached." Spencer leaned back, smile returning like a mask. "You see malice in every gesture, but not everyone's out to hurt you, Evelyn. Sometimes it really is just a chance to make things right." The tone was honeyed, each word, a thread spun with care, soft enough to sound safe, sharp enough to bind. Lily looked between them, torn. "Mom, maybe you're being too hard. They're family. They're not monsters." Evelyn's voice lowered, steady but aching. "Lily, the world doesn't always bite. Sometimes it charms. And sometimes the wolves wear silk." Her daughter looked down, uncertainty clouding her features. Cole gathered his papers, tone clipped. "We'll give you time, but don't mistake patience for weakness." Evelyn met his gaze. "And don't mistake silence for surrender." They rose. Spencer placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, again possessive, paternal. "You'll see the truth eventually," he said quietly. "We're the only ones who can protect you." Evelyn didn't answer. She simply walked them to the door, the click of her heels echoing through the hall, her own heartbeat carved into sound. When the car disappeared down the drive, she stood in the fading light, arms folded, watching until the dust settled. Behind her, Lily lingered, eyes glossy with conflict. Mom, you could have at least listened. Maybe they're not what you think. Evelyn turned soft but resolute. And maybe you're forgetting who your father was. He didn't build this place to be divided by greed. You're so stubborn, Lily whispered. So sure everyone's lying. Not everyone, Evelyn said. Just those who smile too easily while counting what's not theirs. Lily bit her lip, turned, and walked upstairs, her footsteps fading like fading trust. Evelyn remained by the table, eyes falling on the folded contract. She picked it up, weighing it in her hand like a stone. Then she reached for her notebook, the one that now held her quiet vows, and wrote another line beneath yesterday's promise. I will not shout. I will sign only the truth. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying a chill through the aspens. Her voice, steady, echoed in the dim room. Sometimes the hunter doesn't need claws or teeth, only kind words spoken at the right time. She blew out the last candle, plunging the room into half darkness, and stood in silence, not shaken, but sharpened. In the quiet, Evelyn understood battles fought in the open were easy. The hardest ones were fought across the dinner table with a pen, a smile, and the people you love most. Night had settled over Silver Aspen, heavy and silent. The house slept under a sky thick with stars. But Evelyn couldn't rest. Too many faces haunted her. Spencer's smirk, Cole's folded hands, Lily's uncertain eyes. She needed answers, not guesses, proof. Down the hall, a faint creak startled her, but it wasn't a threat. Boone stood by the back door, hat in hand, eyes calm. Couldn't sleep either, ma'am. She shook her head. There's too much at stake. Boone nodded as if he'd been waiting for that reply. Then I reckon it's time you saw what he built for you. He led her out to the barn, the old one behind the stable, its beams dark with age. Inside, the air smelled of dust and cedar. Tools hung in perfect order along the walls. Boone walked to the far corner, brushing away a tarp that revealed a steel hatch bolted sealed, hidden beneath years of hay. He glanced up. Mr. Reed called it the room for when things get ugly. A chill ran through her. A war room. Yes, ma'am. Only he didn't stock it with guns. The hatch creaked open. Boone descended first, lighting a lantern. Evelyn followed the cold air rising from below. The stairs led to a small concrete chamber, bare functional quiet. But the walls told a different story. Pinned across them were maps, timelines, files, and photographs, every page connected by red thread, every note written in Michael's steady hand. On the central table, a binder embossed in gold letters read, Silver Aspen Strategy. Evelyn's breath caught. This wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. She opened the binder. Inside, pages of records, charts, and memos, each one a bullet made of truth. Boone stood beside her, eyes solemn. He knew they'd come for it. So he dug into what they didn't want seen. She turned, the first page. Spencer's name stared back at her. Spencer Reed, Green Horizon Fund. A list of investments in eco-projects that never broke ground. Inflated budgets, ghost vendors, shell accounts. Michael had traced every dollar. The next section, Cole Hastings, legal conflict of interest. Cole had brokered deals while sitting on both sides of the table, signing for clients he secretly controlled. And Grant Reed, insider trading reports, emails, timestamps, transaction logs, a chain of greed longer than the valley itself. Evelyn closed the binder slowly. Michael hadn't been afraid. He'd been 3 steps ahead. Boone crossed his arms, voice low. He said, if they corner her, she won't need fists. She'll need facts. Evelyn exhaled, steadying her pulse. Then she spoke not to Boone, but to the ghost of the man who'd built this plan. All right, Michael. Let's finish what you started. She pulled a notebook from her coat pocket, flipped to a blank page, and began to write. Step 1, the shield. She would file for a conservation easement, a permanent preservation agreement that would protect the land's natural landscape. Once filed, the ranch could no longer be divided or sold off. Partition nullified. Michael had already drafted the environmental assessment. All she had to do was sign. They want to split the land, she whispered. Let's see how they do that when it's protected by federal law. Boone smiled faintly. That'll make 'em mad. Good, she said. Anger clouds judgment. Step 2, the leverage. She flipped to the next line. Michael had noted 2 names in bold ink, Brinex and Aqueo, minerals, rival companies in the lithium race. If Spencer thought he held a monopoly, she would shatter that illusion. By opening talks with Brinex and Aqueo, Evelyn would create competition, a bidding war that stripped the Reed brothers of control. She would no longer be the widow defending her land. She'd be the negotiator, holding the cards. I don't have to sell a thing, she murmured. Just let them know I could. Boone chuckled quietly. You're sounding more like him by the minute. Step 3, the sword. Evelyn turned to the final page, the heading written in Michael's neat script. Whistleblower packet. Inside a cover letter, a timeline, and copies of every incriminating document addressed to the SC state attorney in IRS. All she had to do was fill in her name and send it. A warning shot, she said softly. Not to harm, but to hold them still. She closed the binder and looked around the room, the war room her husband had built not for vengeance, but survival. He didn't want me to fight like them, she said quietly. He wanted me to fight smarter. Boone nodded, said once you saw it all laid out, you'd know exactly what to do. Evelyn gathered the files into her arms. They felt heavy, but not with burden, with purpose. She walked to the desk in the corner, lit by a single hanging bulb. Her hand hovered over the pen, the same one Michael had used for every major deal. I won't draw blood, she whispered. Just lines they can't cross. And then she began writing letters, signing forms, sealing envelopes. Each stroke of ink was a defense, each signature a step forward. Outside, the wind rose again, rattling the barn doors. But Evelyn didn't flinch. This was her battleground now, paper and proof, logic and law. When she finally set the pen down, Boone approached quietly. You sure about all this? Evelyn smiled not gently, but with the calm of a woman who'd found her footing. Completely. They wanted a fight. I'll give them one they can't win. She looked up at the maps, the threads connecting greed to greed, lie to lie. Then softly to herself and to Michael, she said, I don't fight with knives. I fight with paper, ink, and a signature. Boone tipped his hat. That's the kind of war they never see coming, ma'am. Evelyn nodded, closing the binder. Exactly. Because it doesn't roar. It writes. And in that quiet underground room, among maps, ink, and memory, Evelyn Reed began her counterattack. The meeting room smelled of polished oak and tension. Sunlight spilled across the long mahogany table, catching on stacks of contracts and gleaming cufflinks. Evelyn entered quietly, carrying nothing but a single folder and the calm of someone who already knew the ending. At the far end, Spencer waited, posture rigid, smile rehearsed. Beside him sat Cole, flipping through documents, in Grant, silent, unreadable. Across the table, a new face, Mr. Langford, CEO of Brinex Minerals, one of the largest lithium corporations in the country. Mrs. Reed Spencer, greeted voice oiled with confidence. Thank you for agreeing to join us. This is Mr. Langford, Brinex's chief executive. We've drawn up a new proposal, one that ensures everyone gets their fair share. He tapped the screen behind him. A map lit up the Silver Aspen Ranch, divided neatly into grids, colored and labeled. 3 sections, Spencer explained smoothly. Northeast and west. We take equal responsibility, equal benefit. Transparent, equitable. Cole slid a copy toward her. All we need is your signature. Evelyn didn't look at the papers. Instead, she reached into her leather bag and pulled out a small remote. Before we discuss signatures, she said evenly, perhaps we should review the land we're dividing. The projector flickered. Spencer's map disappearing, replaced by a geological survey, detailed, color-coded, unmistakably official. Evelyn stood. This is Silver Aspen's subsurface analysis, conducted last year, verified by the Department of Energy. The section, labeled Best. She paused, eyes sweeping the room. Is where the lithium aquifer lies. Every ounce of it. The so-called bad soil you plan to allocate to yourselves. Spencer froze. Langford turned sharply, confusion etching his face. What? Evelyn met his gaze. Did they tell you that the Western Tract, the one they offered, is unprofitable, contains the entire lithium reserve, and that transferring it would give them full extraction rights. The CEO's expression, hard in color, draining from his cheeks. He turned to Spencer. Is this true? Spencer stammered, the mask cracking. There must be some mistake. The room shifted. The air thickened with unease. Evelyn pressed another button. A new slide appeared. ESG model proposal, Silver Aspen Initiative. Michael and I believed in stewardship, she continued, voice steady. This ranch will operate under a conservation easement, ensuring environmental integrity. Profits from any mineral development will flow into a community fund for local education, reforestation, and small business grants. No exploitation, no deception. Langford leaned forward. This is the plan you're moving forward with, yes, Evelyn said, and I've already filed the easement with the county. Partition is no longer possible. Cole's jaw tightened. Spencer slammed a palm against the table. You went behind our backs. Evelyn turned to him, eyes calm. No, I walked the path you tried to bury. Just then, the side door opened. Every head turned. Through it stepped Attorney Adler, crisp and composed. And beside him, a man in a navy suit with an Aquio Minerals badge pinned to his lapel. Spencer's voice dropped. What is this? Evelyn didn't answer. She simply gestured toward the newcomer. This is Mr. Hughes, legal counsel for Aquio Minerals, Brinex's primary competitor. Langford straightened. You invited Aquio. Of course, Evelyn replied. If the land is to be developed responsibly, competition ensures transparency. I won't sell Silver Aspen to anyone who operates in shadows. The CEO of Brinex looked from Evelyn to Spencer, realization dawning. You told me the West Tract was worthless, he hissed. You lied to secure the reserve for yourselves. Evelyn reached into her folder, pulling out a sealed envelope marked confidential. She placed it on the table with deliberate precision. This, she said quietly, contains full documentation of your financial misconduct, all three of you. False environmental funds, self-dealing contracts, insider trades. Every page authenticated. Spencer's face blanched. Cole's fingers twitched. Evelyn's gaze never wavered. I don't want your ruin. I want your retreat. If you continue to threaten my daughter or interfere with Silver Aspen, this packet will be delivered to the SEC, the state attorney, and the press. She paused. If not, it stays sealed. Langford rose abruptly, collecting his briefcase. Brinex won't be part of this. Good day, Mrs. Reed. He turned, leaving the room without another glance. The door shut behind him with finality. Spencer's voice broke the silence, rough with disbelief. You set us up. Evelyn's tone was soft, but unyielding. No, Spencer. You set the trap. I just turned it over. He slammed his fist on the table, papers scattering. You dare threaten me? She stood gathering her folder, her calm more powerful than his fury. I don't dare. I act within the law. Something you should try. For a moment, he could only stare at her chest, heaving pride collapsing. Grant rose, silently said nothing, and walked out after Langford. Cole followed, pale lips pressed into a thin line. Spencer lingered, shaking the empire in his hands, crumbling like dust. Evelyn turned away, her voice low but final. You can't divide what was built whole, and you can't steal what's already been given light. When the door finally closed behind him, the room exhaled. Evelyn sank into the chair, the silence around her, no longer heavy, but clean, the sound of a storm passing. She glanced at the sealed envelope one last time, then slipped it back into her bag. You taught me well, Michael, she whispered. Justice doesn't shout, it signs. Outside the sky over Silver Aspen, cleared clouds, drifting apart to reveal a wide, quiet sun. And for the first time, Evelyn smiled not in victory, but in peace. The town's cafe was nearly empty that night. Just the hum of a ceiling fan and the faint murmur of a jazz song drifting through old speakers. Rain tapped softly against the windows, tracing thin silver lines down the glass. Evelyn sat in the corner booth, a small lamp casting golden light across the table. Her hands rested on the open laptop, its glow soft against her face. Across from her, Lily sat in silence, shoulders tense, eyes distant. The space between them felt heavier than ever. Evelyn turned the screen toward her daughter. He wanted you to see this. A video file loaded, the last one in the folder marked for Evie. Michael's face appeared clear and calm, his eyes gentle but steady. Behind him, the light of silver aspen shimmered like a promise. Lily. He began, his voice carrying that familiar mix of patience and certainty. If you're angry, I understand. Anger's easy when we feel left out. But the things that last love, trust, legacy, they can't be divided like land. Lily's breath hitched. Michael smiled faintly, a smile made of memory. Don't sell what was built with love. Don't trade roots for gold. Silver aspen isn't just property. It's the story of how your mother and I learned to build instead of break. He leaned closer to the camera, eyes softening. You carry both of us in you, the strength to protect and the grace to forgive. Use them together. The video ended with silence, the kind that doesn't echo, but lingers. Lily sat, frozen hands pressed to her lips. Her voice broke when she finally spoke. Mom, I didn't understand. I thought you were fighting for land, but you were fighting for us. Evelyn reached across the table, her palm open, patient. Lily took it, tears spilling freely now. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I was wrong. Evelyn squeezed her hand gently. You weren't wrong, sweetheart. You were searching, just like he did. Now you know what he meant. Outside, the rain slowed, turning to mist. The tension that had shadowed them for weeks melted into something softer. Not forgiveness spoken, but forgiveness felt. The next morning, the air over Silver Aspen was clear, washed clean by the night's rain. In the ranch office, sunlight poured through the northern windows, lighting the long wooden table where a new contract waited. Across from Evelyn stood Mr. Hughes, legal counsel for Aqueo Minerals, and Attorney Adler. Beside her this time, not as an adversary, but as a partner, was Lily. The document between them was not a sale, but a memorandum of understanding, a partnership built on stewardship, transparency, and heart. Evelyn spoke first. This agreement ensures Silver Aspen remains under conservation. Extraction will follow ESG standards, clean, sustainable. 10% of net profit will fund a community trust for local education and reforestation. Mr. Hughes nodded. It's rare, Mrs. Reed, a deal with soul. Lily added, voice steady now. It's what my father would have wanted. They signed together 2 generations, one purpose. The pens left strokes of ink that felt more like closure than business. Adler smiled. Congratulations. You've turned a battlefield into a blueprint. Evelyn closed the folder. No, she said softly. Michael did. We just followed the map. That afternoon, the valley seemed to breathe easier. The air smelled of pine and new beginnings. Evelyn and Lily rode side by side through the meadow, Harper, the chestnut mare, beneath Evelyn, and a speckled gray beneath Lily. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting ribbons of gold across the fields. The aspens shimmered their leaves, whispering secrets only the wind could hear. Lily looked over, smiling through tears. It's beautiful, Mom. Evelyn nodded. He built it for us to see, not sell. They slowed atop a small ridge, the ranch sprawling below, like a painting. Red roofs, white fences, streams glittering under the sun. Lily breathed deeply. I thought love meant saying yes, but maybe it's knowing when to say no. Evelyn turned to her, eyes shining. Boundaries aren't walls, Lily. They're bridges, the kind that last. The horses pawed gently at the earth, the rhythm of their breath syncing with the breeze. In that moment, mother and daughter were not divided by law or pride, but joined by something older, the promise of a man who had seen further than both of them. As they rode toward the horizon, Evelyn's voice, steady and warm, carried through the quiet. Limits sometimes, they're not what keep us apart, but what keep us close. Because love without boundaries isn't love, it's loss. The wind picked up, carrying her words across the meadow, a whisper of wisdom woven into the grass and light. And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt peace, not as a destination, but as home. The courthouse smelled faintly of cedar and dust, the kind of air that held too many endings. Light poured through the high windows, streaking the room in pale gold, like truth breaking through clouds. Evelyn sat still at the front, hands folded, face calm. Beside her, Lily leaned forward, breath caught between hope and fear. Across the aisle, Spencer, Cole, and Grant sat in silence, their once polished confidence now dulled by weeks of unraveling. When the judge entered, every sound fell away. Only the gavel spoke. This court, the judge began, voice measured and firm, finds the partition petition invalid. The land in question, Silver Aspen Ranch, is under federal conservation easement filed lawfully and binding. Ownership remains solely with Mrs. Evelyn Reed. A pause. The sound of papers shuffling, then, given the nature of the easement and evidence presented, Mr. Spencer Reed is barred from any further claim or appeal. The matter is hereby closed. The gavel struck once, sharp and final, a sound that echoed like the end of a storm. Evelyn didn't smile. She simply exhaled a breath she'd been holding since Michael's death. Justice, when quiet, felt heavier. Not triumph, but truth restored. Cole rose, gathering his briefcase. His face pale. Spencer stayed seated, unmoving, his hands trembling slightly on the table. He stared ahead, eyes distant, as if the room itself had vanished, and only regret remained. Evelyn stood smoothing the folds of her coat, then turned to Cole. Her voice was gentle but firm. "There's something Michael left for your brother." She reached into her leather folder and handed him a small cream-colored envelope. The handwriting across it was unmistakable, clean, deliberate, the ink slightly faded. "Yo." To Spencer. Cole hesitated, eyes flicking to Spencer, then back to Evelyn. "You're giving this to me. He trusted you to deliver it," Evelyn said quietly. "And I trust him." Cole nodded, wordless, and crossed the aisle. He placed the envelope in Spencer's trembling hand. For a long time, Spencer just stared at it. The paper shook slightly between his fingers. Finally, he tore it open, the seal breaking with a soft sigh. Inside one single sheet, his eyes scanned the page, and as he read, his face changed, first confusion, then disbelief, then something older, sorrow. His lips moved soundlessly, but in the quiet room, Evelyn could almost hear Michael's voice, calm, steady, unyielding. "Brother, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer there to argue with you or forgive you in person. So, I'll do it here. I forgive you, Spencer. Not because you deserve it, but because I can't build peace while holding a sword. You were always the eldest. I followed you once. But some roads, brother, lead only back to greed. If you still try to take what isn't yours, justice will not come from me. It will come from the world, quietly, but completely. So walk away, while you still can. Michael." By the time he reached the end, Spencer's shoulders had slumped. He folded the letter with shaking hands, pressing it to his chest, as if it could still carry warmth. A single tear slid down his cheek, tracing the line between pride and pain. Then another. He sank back into his chair, head bowed, the paper trembling in his grasp. No arguments left. No allies. Only the echo of a brother's grace, heavy as judgment, soft as mercy. Lily reached for her mother's hand. Evelyn took it, her gaze steady on Spencer. Not cruel, not cold, only clear. "Forgiveness," she whispered, "isn't weakness. It's the final strike of those who've already won." The courtroom emptied slowly. Grant slipped out first, silent, his eyes avoiding everyone's. Cole followed, pausing once, a brief nod toward Evelyn, the smallest gesture of respect, before he turned and left. Spencer remained seated long after the others were gone, staring at the letter. Evelyn walked past him, paused, and placed a hand lightly on the back of his chair. "Michael believed you could change," she said softly. "Don't prove him wrong." She didn't wait for a reply. Some truths weren't meant to be answered, only carried. Outside, the air was cool and bright. The courthouse steps glistened with morning dew, and somewhere in the distance, church bells rang noon. Lily exhaled beside her. "It's over, isn't it?" Evelyn looked up at the sky, wide, clear, boundless. "No," she said gently. "It's begun." They walked together down the steps, hand in hand, mother and daughter, light and shadow intertwined. Behind them, through the courthouse window, Spencer still sat alone, a man holding a letter that weighed more than any verdict. And though Evelyn couldn't see him, she didn't need to. Michael's words would do what no punishment could: plant a seed in soil once barren. As the wind stirred the leaves around them, Evelyn's voice, calm and resolute, carried into the light. Forgiveness, it isn't surrender. It's the final move of those wise enough to end the war. Spring came gently to Silver Aspen. The snow that once guarded the fields melted into silver threads, feeding streams that wove through the valley like veins of light. The air smelled of pine and promise of something ending and beginning all at once. Down by the western ridge, the DLE pilot station, Michael's final vision hummed softly. Its solar panels gleamed under the sun, pulling power not from greed, but gratitude. Workers moved quietly, their laughter light. No drilling scars, no poisoned earth. Just harmony technology and nature coexisting the way Michael once dreamed. At the heart of it all, Lily stood by the main office clipboard, in hand, overseeing operations with calm precision. She carried her father's discipline now, and her mother's grace. Each month, the Michael Reed Community Fund grew, sponsoring local schools, planting new trees, building wells where old ones had run dry. Children waved when she passed. She waved back always with the same smile, the one Evelyn recognized from years ago when Lily still believed the world could be rebuilt. Not far away near the paddock, Boone Carver led a group of children through the stables. "Gentle hands," he said softly. "Horses don't answer to force, only trust." The children giggled, mimicking his drawl, their small fingers brushing the coats of 6 proud horses. The stable smelled of hay and sunlight, the sound of hooves echoing like old memories. Boone glanced toward the ridge, where the ranch house stood tall and steady. He'd be proud, he murmured. Inside the house, the northern light poured through the tall windows, spilling across canvas and color. Evelyn stood before her easel in the studio. Michael built the one, bathed in the soft, forgiving glow he once called her light. Her brush moved slowly, deliberately guided, not by grief anymore, but gratitude. Each stroke carried memory of the man who built a legacy, not from power, but from principle. Of the daughter who learned love isn't obedience but understanding, and of the woman who had finally learned that survival wasn't victory, integrity was. On the canvas, the ranch unfolded like a living map, golden fields swaying under the wind, layers of earth painted in warm ochre tones, each layer a story, a secret, a sacrifice. And above it all, 3 figures on horseback, a man in front, steady, certain. A woman beside him, calm, watchful. A young rider just behind, eager, unafraid. She called it legacy under light. When the last detail dried, Evelyn stepped back. The sun caught the paint just right, illuminating the riders as though they were alive, moving, breathing, belonging. She carried the finished canvas down the hall and hung it in the grand hall where the morning light could reach it first. As she stepped back, sunlight streamed through the window, striking the frame and scattering across the floor. The room glowed. So did she. Her reflection merged with the painting woman and legacy one in the same. Later, Evelyn brewed tea in the quiet kitchen, the steam curling gently in the spring air. Through the window, she could see Lily riding Harper across the meadow, her laughter carried on the wind. Boone waved from the fence, and the children clapped, chasing her shadow across the grass. Evelyn smiled. For the first time in years, the silence of the house was not emptiness, it was peace. She poured the tea slowly, savoring the warmth against her palms. The scent of chamomile rose like memory. Her voice, soft, steady, filled the room. "I didn't win against anyone. I only learned to keep myself." She paused, glancing toward the open door, where sunlight reached across the floor like an invitation. "The greatest revenge," she whispered, "is to live with enough wisdom and enough heart that there's nothing left they can take." She lifted the cup, the porcelain warm against her lips. Outside the ranch thrived not as a monument to power, but as a living testament to resilience, love, and truth. And as Lily rode across the field, her silhouette framed by light, Evelyn leaned against the window, eyes soft with peace. The breeze stirred the curtains, carrying a scent of pine, tulip, and home. She closed her eyes, the whisper leaving her lips like a prayer returned to the wind. "Michael, I'm home." The sun climbed higher, spreading light across the painting in the hall, across the ranch that had survived greed and grief, and across the heart of the woman who had learned that justice could be gentle and strength silent. Spring moved on the valley, alive with color and song. And in that brightness, Silver Aspen finally became what Michael had always intended, not a fortress to defend, but a future to nurture. A legacy whole, unbroken, and free.